This is our news, the weekend edition, and on the broadcast tonight. On the defense, the Deputy Prime Minister defends amendments to the Immigration Act. Plus, the Labour Director gives an update on negotiations for a new industrial agreement at Morton Salt. And we'll tell you about a rare surgery that was performed right here in the Bahamas.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest defending government's recently passed amendments to the Immigration Act, which creates 2 new work visas. Among the critics are Bar Association President Khalil Parker, who claims that the changes would challenge the sovereignty of the Bahamas.
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding of what this bill is trying to accomplish. The fact of the matter is, what we're looking at is attracting to the Bahamas professionals and investors who are involved in industries that are not represented in the Bahamas or that are underrepresented in the Bahamas. These are specialty firms.
Those amendments create 2 new work visas, including a BH-1B visa that would grant a work visa biometric card to anyone who has permission to engage in gainful occupation in the Bahamas that has a specified commercial enterprise certificate under the Commercial Enterprises Act 2017. The BH-4S permit would allow the spouse or dependent child of a BH-1B work visa holder to reside in the Bahamas and enroll in educational institutions during the duration of the permit. Parker described the changes as unworkable and undesirable. He also claimed that the Bar Association wasn't consulted.
But again, I can't speak to that in particularly the bar or any particular grouping, but I can say that there was consultation, and I believe Dame Allen has spoken to this. Again, I can't say who they've spoken to, but it's certainly, we didn't dream this up overnight. There was consultation.
Well, more than a year after negotiations for a new industrial agreement began, workers at Morton Salt are still struggling to come to a happy medium with their employers. While giving an update on the situation, Labour Director John Pinder said it's important for the union to negotiate carefully as the privately owned company would pull out of that island. Our Gillian Gray tells us more.
The union at Morton Salt in Inagua still at a stalemate with management over a new industrial agreement. Labour Director John Pinder said he's working to get both parties back to the table, but said the union must learn to compromise, as there's a possibility the company may jump ship.
The management of Morton Salt is waiting for the union to actually come with a reasonable proposal. But let me say this. The union at Morton Salt must really understand that Morton Salt, sometimes you look at the people's balance sheets, you look at their business, what they're doing elsewhere, and all the rest of that. How important is the Bahamas to Morton Salt at this time? How important are those jobs to the Bahamians in Inagua at this time? And sometimes you have to compromise.
Earlier this year, President of the Bahamas Industrial Manufacturers and Allied Workers Union, Jennifer Brown, said her members produce approximately 1 million pounds of salt per year, but the union does not believe their wages are comparable to other Morton Salt plants internationally. Pinder said the union representing Morton Salt staff must think about how much the company really needs the plant in Inagua, as well as the possible impact on its membership if the company decides to shut down that operation.
That's the largest employer. Well, that's the only employer outside of a couple government jobs in Inagua. That's Morton Salt. We got to look at these things. Now, that doesn't say that Morton Salt should take advantage of the persons because of that. But I think both sides have to be reasonable. And so I'm still waiting to see what Morton Salt counter-proposal would be, or what the union counter-proposal would be to Morton Salt, and to see if Morton Salt is not being reasonable. I will say to them, you're not being reasonable, you have to be more reasonable.
The union rejected the company's offer of a 1.5% wage increase and insisted an increase in insurance payments is too much for employees to handle. As both parties are reviewing those figures, Pinder said the union may need to implement different negotiating tactics.
You have to use your negotiating skills that if you can't get the fly with the vinegar, use the honey. You see? So there are some things that the union could do to still cause their members to feel that they are benefiting more than from the last industrial agreement. Don't just look at the insurance part of it. See how you can put some other benefits in there that will offset that.
Armed with a strike certificate, the union can take action at any time. But Pinder said he would advise a different approach. I
would advise them, I would admonish them, and I'm going to try as best I can to get a meeting with them as quickly as possible. I don't know if it's happening anymore by the end of the week because of flights and how they have to arrange it, but as early as next week, I would need to sit down once again and talk with both sides, but especially the union. You got to look at the importance of those jobs down there. So we don't need to have no threat of Morton Salt closing that operation down and going to the other operation that they have in some other part of the world. You know, and so that's very important for them to understand that.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks a lot, Jillian. Well, with recent unemployment numbers showing an increase from 10% to 10.7%, Labor Director John Pinder said the Bahamas should be preparing people for specialized fields, as many times those get filled by foreigners.
We need to do it from they going into grade 10, grade 11, grade 12. Say to them, listen, you want to go to university and come back to your country and find a job? These are the areas that we sure you can get a job in. The medical field, as relates to medical technologists, radiology, nursing, there's a number of areas that you sure you'll get a job because the amount of labor certificates we sign them, you know you can get it. Welding, sandblasting, pipe fitting. There's a number of areas in which we have to encourage our students to study in that when they come home, be sure they can get a job.
Unemployment remains an issue, but Pinder said while some may say that Grand Bahama is void of jobs, there is an abundance of them in the technical fields.
I had just 2 weeks ago a request from the shipyard for 125 labor certificates because they can't find the skills in Grand Bahama. Most of them were the ones that I mentioned to you: pipe fitters, welders, sandblasters, and those type of skill sets that we need.
He said he's contacted the local tertiary education facilities to ensure that they train students on cutting-edge technology, as this is sometimes a concern for companies.
In a conversation just last week, I had to say to the person's president of BTVI, don't just train these kids in welding. You have to make sure they know welding with the modern technology that's used in welding today. We got to ensure they are trained on the cutting edge of technology. So I believe a lot of times some of our training is still the old method. And when they get into the job place, the employer becomes kind of frustrated because you don't know the modern way of doing or using these modern equipment and these modern tools. So one of the things we have to concentrate on is ensuring that they are trained with the modern tools and the modern equipment.
And from the crime beat tonight, police confiscating more than 50 pounds of marijuana after conducting a search of an abandoned building on Horseshoe Drive. Officers from the Central Detective Unit, acting on intel, went to the location around 12 p.m. Friday, where they discovered 53 pounds of marijuana valued at $53,000. No arrests were made in connection to this find. However, Drug Enforcement Unit officers would arrest 4 men in a separate drug incident after they were found in possession of 5 suspected marijuana plants. Investigations continue. Meantime, officers of the fire unit are conducting a probe into a fire here in the capital yesterday that destroyed an apartment unit. 2 people had to be treated for minor smoke inhalation. Officers were called to the scene of the fire on East Street south of Coconut Grove around 4 p.m. Friday, where they met a portion of the stone structure fully engulfed in flames. Now the officers were able to extinguish the blaze, which was contained to a single unit of the apartment complex. However, there was extensive damage. Still ahead tonight, the finance minister says millions more could be added to the budget for CLECO payments. That story and more when Our News, the Weekend Edition, returns.